Hi, I'm Rhonda Farrah. Welcome to my show, Fix Your Reflection First. I have had a wealth of life experiences, both good and bad, like everyone, and the one thing I have learned is that I am wholly responsible for the results. As I have evolved to liking the person I see in the mirror, my life has changed for the better, and that is what I help those that I coach do too. Please tune in every week as I will coach folks, listen to stories of success, and give you the tips and tools I have learned to make sure what you see is something you love and help you fix your reflection first. Welcome to Fix Your Reflection First and Live Your Best Life Ever. I'm your host, Rhonda Farrah, and you are listening to Transformation Talk TV Radio Network. Our program, Fix Your Reflection First, is dedicated to awakening hearts, minds, and most especially spirit to our innate power from within, our authentic power from within. That's the power to thrive and not merely survive. So wherever you are in life right now, if you are not living the life you want to be living, the life you desire, perhaps even the life you dream about, you have come to the right place. So happy that you joined us today as we explore how we may be more mindful and make better choices to living our best life ever. And today we have special guest Trixi Menhardt with us. And let me welcome Trixi, first of all.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Let me tell you a little bit about Trixi. With a decade of leadership coaching and having worked with 500 plus mid to senior level professionals, Trixi Menhardt has learned that most people can figure out how to become a better leader, get promoted, find work-life balance as well. Where outwardly successful high achievers are often at a loss is how to connect with their young adult kids, those genders who are making very different choices. There is a real anxiety behind the belief that the children are not going to be successful in life. Trixi Menhardt discusses with us. And who can you talk to about that? Not your spouse, probably not your social circle, because you are supposed to have it all together. So today we will explore with Trixi how you can be not only a better parent, the parent you want to be, but redefining your role from provider to mentor to your kids. Welcome, Trixi Menhardt.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So I read a little bit of your bio, and that will all be in our episode description. However, tell us about yourself and how you came to do what you do.
Yeah, I had a corporate career for about 20 years in sales and business development, and it also took me around the world. So I was born in Vienna, Austria, and then I moved to Toronto, Canada. Then I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area. I spent 4 years in India, and now I live on the East Coast in Florida. And somewhere throughout my corporate career, I realized that what I really love is developing people. You know, the early days, it was about closing the deal or winning that product award. But later on, as I became a manager, and then as I was working in mergers and acquisitions, I learned that I just love when people can be their best. I had to deal with such diverse markets, products, business ideas. There was no way I could keep up with it. So my only way to handle it was really just lean into listening, encourage people, empower them. And so that's what led me to becoming a coach.
Okay. And that's quite a specialty. How do you, I have a 39-year-old daughter, and how do you identify you're from the corporate world. I was a long time ago, but how do you identify with your adult child? Much different today.
Yes, yes. And I always say my own kids are my best teachers. So my son is 28 and my daughter is 22, 23, 23 this month. And they're my best teachers. And so between myself trying to find a path as a parent that I can believe in, and then watching friends, family, and really my clients. I mean, that's where it all started. These high achieving people, a lot of them were actually male fathers who, as I said in my intro, after we deal with their career issues and their aspirations, they open up and they say, well, that's what's really in my heart. That's really what keeps me up at night, is that I don't have a relationship with my child, with my 18, 19, 25, 30-year-old child. I don't know how to talk to them, that every conversation turns into a confrontation. I've kind of lost my footing. So I kind of saw it in my own orbit, and then I learned it from my clients. And when I thought about it as parents, is that's for me, that's the only thing that matters. Everything
Right.
else is negotiable. But
Yes.
you raised this child, you love this child, and now you can't connect with them as an adult.
Oh, I see. The it's interesting you said you started out mostly with men as your clients.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you find that with whether it's men or whether it's women, that their aspiration is for their kid to be to follow the route, to follow the path, or to take the family business? Um, what would you have to say about that?
Yeah. To some extent, I think it's a generational question. How was I raised and how do I raise my children?
Mm,
And I mean, if you ask people, right, they want their kids to be happy, but they also believe that happiness comes from success. And our generation, like I'm in my early 60s, we were taught that happiness comes from material success, buying that house, living in that great community, having that career that's interesting, going on all those trips. That's how we were raised. And I think the gap right now is that whether they're Gen Zers or older, they have a different value system, and rightly so. I think our kids' generation is much more emotionally in tune than we are. They're allowed to let it out for whatever reason, blame it on social media or the way we were brought up or whatever. But I see such a difference. And I was just talking to a colleague today, and I said, your son is 14. I mean, how would you rate yourself compared to him in terms of his emotional intuition and awareness? And he said, oh, no question. There was no way I was like him when I was 14. And I see that in my kids. My kids are, sometimes I feel like they're way ahead of me in their emotional development.
they're a little braver than maybe we were. I'm in my mid 60s, and it's like, yeah, my daughter's much more courageous and bold in many ways. Most of them I like, some of them I don't care for. However, yeah, big difference. So what is the common ground then? If they're doing things one way and we're doing things another way, what is the common ground to defining? How do we take our success as each of us define it and talk about it and share it with each other?
Yeah. I think it's like any relationship, go back to why you love this person. Well, why do you love your child? Because it's that baby that you looked at. And I mean, I think most parents can relate to that. Even if the first few months were difficult, at some point you fall deeply in love with that little child. And the person who is a young adult now is still that same child. I'm still that same child that I was at the age of 5 years. My essence is still the same. So, my work with parents is to help them reconnect with what they originally loved about their child. So, if a child was really strong willed and outgoing, well, what does that look like now when they're an adult? If they were more quiet and timid, where has that led them? And it's like in any relationship, you fall in love with certain qualities, and later on, those are the qualities that will most annoy you. And it's not any different between parent and children.
Yes. Yeah, I get that. So why would someone come to you, or how do you attract the people that you wish to help?
Okay, so those are, I guess, different questions. Why would somebody come to me is because they're lost and they're alone in this. I mean, that's what you read in my intro, and that's an important part when I coach parents. They're outwardly successful. Their
Mm,
spouse is not the right partner because they're too emotionally invested in the situation. So I always say when something like that is happening in a family, work with a specialist, work with somebody who understands this. You and your spouse cannot really address that.
no.
Um, can you talk to your brother, your sister, your friends, your neighbors? Maybe. And that's, I think, again, where the category of men comes in, that women have a network, right? They have their network of sisters. They have
Yes.
other women to talk to. Men usually don't have that. Like, again, that's something that's more evolving, but traditionally, I would say men don't have that brotherhood where they can say, hey, this is something that's really scaring me, something that makes me deeply anxious. So that's why people come to me. Where they find me, word of mouth, social media, wherever. Mostly word of mouth, the people I've worked with. And I also collaborate with a lot of other coaches. I'm part of a huge network, and each of us has a specialty. So if you come to me today and say, hey, my 39-year-old daughter, she wants to switch careers, I will not coach her. I will send her to the coach that I know does that best.
Okay. Do you, I mean, it's a specialty. I love it. I've never heard of this niche. So and I know how you came to get there, and you're very passionate about your children. Yes. And you're attracting people that are passionate about the same thing,
Yeah,
I would have to say.
yeah, yeah. And one of the things when you coach a situation that seems dire,
Right.
the worst fear parents have is, in my experience, is that child that's kind of lost, that keeps making the wrong decision, that young person ends up on the street. Right? You walk through San Francisco, you walk through any affluent town, you can see what happens to people. So that's the worst fear.
Right.
And when you come to me and you tell me how things are out of control and all the things that are not working, and you're my client and you ask me whether I can help you. The reason I know I can help you is that the parent-child relationship is a very unique one.
Mm.
It's a bond that's almost impossible to break. So even though you might feel that it has gone to a point where there's no return, that you will never be able to reconnect or build trust with your child, that's not true. So I also coach young adults through
Mm.
my corporate sponsored coaching work. I see it from the inside out. I
Right.
hear the stories of how they crave a deep connection with their parent.
And they just don't have it for one reason or another. And the parent is craving a connection with their child, but
Yeah,
no one's communicating it.
yeah, yeah. I thought, okay, I need to do this own work in my own family. So I reached out to my kids and I said, hey, let's define a relationship. What kind of mother do you want me to be? And I got some really interesting feedback. But then, for example, my daughter, she asked me, well, how do you want me to be? And that was a question I'd never thought of. How do I want my daughter to be in the relationship? So again, for me, I learn every single day.
Right.
This is not just who I am for them, but who can they be for me?
Which is, I mean, you're making them a priority. You're making their opinion, what they think, feel, see, smell, and taste is important to you. And that, I mean, that counts for a lot.
Yeah.
It's not, you're the parent is usually the, okay, I'm your parent, or I can remember in the wee days when my daughter was very wee, and she'd say, well, why do I have to do that? And I would say to her, because I'm the mother and you're the daughter. And then we both start laughing. Okay. So, but in many cases, that's how parents think. And then the child is brought up that way and emulates that behavior and takes it with them, with their own children in some cases.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember my own childhood. I think my mother had nothing but good intentions for me, but it was her kind of intentions. They weren't mine.
Right. Right. Talk to us about, I have a couple colleagues who deal with the subject of estrangement.
Mm-hmm.
And they have two different viewpoints, and I'll be quite candid. One of them I don't agree with at all. He says, this client of mine, no, I don't feel that parents and children who are estranged, they should call their child, they should send a birthday card, they should leave them alone and be prepared to leave them alone for 1 or 2 years. And then they come around. I can't see that. Okay, what is your opinion of that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that doesn't sound good to me.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it didn't sound good to me, but here's an expert that I saw on a very popular podcast, and I'm thinking, wow, that's so harsh. How do you get that? What you will get, I think, is more estrangement and more separation.
Yeah, I agree with that, Rhonda. And yet I can see that if you hear that advice, it's so tangible. It's so easy. Okay, I'll do this and everything will be fine.
Right.
Whereas the real work is much more challenging. The real work really, again, goes back to how were you raised? What was your relationship with your parents? Letting go of the idea that your child should be a doctor or a lawyer or running this country is really hard. Accepting that your child is a beautiful human being, but might never be an academic.
Right.
That's hard work.
Hard work. Right.
Yeah. And so I think that the not talking to somebody for 2 years, that seems like a simple recipe.
The easy way out. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll just follow their formula and everything will be fine.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. But I'm cut from a different cloth. So that's that. You have a 7-week program that you refer your clients to. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, that's called the Mental Fitness app, and it was designed by Shirzad Chamine, who is the founder of Positive Intelligence. It's a coaching organization, so they both train coaches, they coach individuals and corporations, and they manage this app. And so I'm a licensed coach with them, and what I do is anybody who wants to work with me, that's a requirement. So I won't take you on as a client unless you're willing to go through the program, because I see the difference. I used to be more like, okay, if you don't want it, but the results are just tremendous. So think about mental fitness. If let's just apply to the situation we're talking about, you're estranged from your child and you want a radical change. That's like me getting out of my chair right now and wanting to run a marathon. When I'm really fit, I can run 5 miles. I cannot run a marathon. But if it's my goal, I need to work at it.
Right.
That's the same idea with the mental fitness gym. But we go in there and we start working, and there's almost a muscle in your brain. So the right side of your brain that has all the empathy, the curiosity, the positive thinking. It's completely underdeveloped by design because in order to survive, we have to be constantly thinking from our left brain, which is danger, watch out, provide, bring in the harvest, bring in the firewood, never trust anybody. But in today's world, that's not applicable anymore. So we really can build up that part of the brain that immediately goes to positive thought. And it doesn't mean that you don't have negative feelings anymore, but it's this idea of if you have a negative thought, it's like your hand on the hot stove. It's a symptom, and you take it off. You think, oh, what's going on here? Why am I embarrassed? Why am I angry? Why am I sad? So that's the 7-week program. And when I first enrolled in it, it was like 3-4 years ago, I had PTSD from an accident. I'm a horse rider, and I had a really bad horse riding accident. And luckily, nothing happened, but it scared me. And I couldn't go on these trails anymore. I couldn't. I mean, I used to love it, but I couldn't go on a steep, rugged trail anymore because I'd fallen off it. And I was like 3-4 weeks into the program, and by accident, I found myself on a trail like this. And my friend was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry I brought you here. Let's turn around. And I said, hey, I have this new thing. It's called a PQ rep, positive intelligence repetition. Let me try this. And I repped my way down the trail. Instead of thinking about my panic, I thought about, okay, let's start with all the body parts of the horse, all the gear on the horse. When I was done with that, let's look at the color in the leaves. And at the bottom of the trail, I thought, what was that ever about? So if I can get rid of PTSD, I think you can get rid of pretty much anything.
Right. So this isn't just geared for parents and children who are, want a better relationship.
This is geared for anybody who wants to make a change in their life, who wants to feel better. Ultimately, it's about developing true self-empathy. So instead of conditional self-love, we feel good about ourselves when somebody tells us or when we have achieved something. It's really about loving yourself. My essence. My essence as a 5-year-old is the same essence as I am today.
Yeah, I do fix your reflection first and live your best life ever is my brand.
Yes.
And I do that work myself. I mean, I do work every morning, and it's interesting because you mentioned the 5-year-old, and I have a certain picture. I'm much younger than 5, but I'm standing, and that's little Rhonda.
Mm-hmm.
And I speak to little Rhonda, and she speaks back. But that's the crux of things: the self-love, self-care, self-respect, self-esteem, appreciating yourself. It begins there.
Yeah, you cannot love somebody else unless you love yourself. It's a simple truth, and I don't think I love myself unconditionally, but I'm getting better at it.
Right. Exactly. That's why I never agreed with the take 2 years off if you're estranged. Because that, to me, that's not, I'm not going to take 2 years off from myself, from practicing self-care and self-love. And, more so when we can look in our mirror and see the love of our life.
Yeah.
That's where it begins. That's where the positive changes and the mindfulness to make better choices begin, in my opinion.
Yeah. And, I think I've seen that model in practice in my own family and in other families. And I'm talking about, taking time off. And on the surface, it works, but nothing has changed underneath. So it's shallow. It's brittle. There's no basis for it. At the first hurt, it all crumbles again.
That was the Band-Aid approach. Yeah. We'll put yeah. And that's it. Yeah, scrub the wound sometime. That's it. And you gotta understand where that wound is coming from in order for it to heal properly.
Yeah.
What's your biggest takeaway from the work that you do?
It's all about our relationships, you know.
Mhm.
If we can love ourselves, the whole world would be an amazing place. So for me, it's one client at a time. If I can help them get back into a loving relationship with their children, think about the trickle down. So it's one person, and how does that spread? It spreads to all their relationships. It will spread to all their children relationships. So I work with one person, but it multiplies and it keeps going.
Yes, absolutely. Do you have a particular situation, healing that you'd like to share with us?
Um, it's a lot about breath work, but it's also guided breath work because most people will get anxious or restless during breath work.
Mm,
So the kinds of things I teach people is, for example, you put your fingertips together
right,
and really focus on exploring your fingertips. And if any thoughts come to interrupt you, gently send them away. Just
right,
wave them away. It's
right.
okay to come. So really the simple thing is it will calm you down. Just touch your fingertips.
That's a great reminder. I had forgotten about that. Yes, that was good. How do people engage with you to like get a hold of you? And you tell us. This will be in our program, our episode description, and otherwise. But right now, how would people get a hold of you to engage with you?
Yeah. They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me on my website, and they can find me on social media on Instagram. And I think I'll share all of those links with you. And what I do is if you want to explore working with me, I do a
Mhm.
1 hour assessment with you where we talk about your specific saboteurs, those judgy thoughts that derail you.
Yes,
I give you real value. This is not just a sales pitch, but in that 1 hour, you learn a lot about what's holding you back. And then if you decide to work with me, we can talk about that. But it's
right,
really, I do these all the time, just because once you see the saboteurs, they cannot be unseen.
right, right. You have to stick your head pretty well in the sand if you don't want them to be seen anymore.
Yeah.
And it
Yes. Yes.
doesn't yet. That doesn't happen. Well, Trixi, thank you for spending time with us. I love your specialty. I absolutely love it, and I would recommend anybody who has adult children um, at least research what it is that if this is probably touching some hearts and minds. I know it has mine today. And don't go into fear. Take another look. Take another look and be willing. Be willing and ready and able, and you will have a better relationship with your adult children.
Yeah. Yeah. And all I can say for myself, it's the most important relationship in my life.
Yes, I totally agree with you. Well, in closing today, let me remind all of us that regardless of whatever struggles, whatever challenges, whatever life changes we are facing, because it happens, we have the opportunity, if we choose, to let all of that serve us than anything less than that. So whatever tunnel you happen to be traveling down these days, rest assured that the light at the end is not a train. That light is the way, it's the guidance, it's the opportunity to move forward and be the best version of yourself ever. So thank you for joining us today. And Trixi Menhardt, a special thank you to you. And call Trixi, contact Trixi. I think it'll make a world of difference. So I'm Rhonda Farrah. You have been listening to Transformation Talk, Television, Radio Network. And until next time, have a beautiful day every day. And as I invite our listeners, our viewers to do, I will invite you today to treat life as if it were ice cream and enjoy it before it melts. I'm Rhonda Farrah, and you have been listening to Fix Your Reflection First. Tune into Transformation Talk Radio every first and third Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time for success stories of folks I have coached. I will be sharing more of my tips and tools that you can use to love the person you see in the mirror and how to fix your reflection first. Live your best life ever by choosing to be bold and courageous, even if it means getting out of your comfort zone. To connect with me, visit helpmerhondanow.com.